misses class or if anyone needs to review, we've got the recording of class going. And but just remember, if you still missing things, get those turned in. And it's especially important to get those done, caught up now. So let's look at what we have this week in Buzz. All right, Algebra 2. Let's go to the grade screen. What we have, oh, it's interesting. It's test week. We're up to the test. So we have the test week. Systems of equations, discussion-based assessment. So I'm going to talk about that here in just a moment. And then systems of equation test, part 1 and part 2. Part 1 and part 2. So let's look at, go back to the activity screen. Let's look at these two test parts, and then I'm going to talk about the discussion-based assessment. So part 1 of the test. Right here. Word problem. It's all about systems of equations, guys. Systems of equations, either linear or nonlinear. So this is, I think this is linear. This is linear. This one you just have to come up with using the substitution method. What would you end up if you substituted? What would you end up with? You don't have to solve it. This one you just have to figure out. This first one you have to solve it because it's talking about Nintendo DS games and Wii games. So you have to figure out the Nintendo DS game. Now, where I see people make a mistake on this question is you get an answer and you choose the wrong one. You end up choosing the solution for the Wii games. It's like it didn't ask about the Wii games. It wants to know about the Nintendo DS games. So you have to make sure you choose the right one. But anyway, another word problem. We got one. Choose the graph that matches this system of equations. Now remember, guys, you can use your notes. You can use anything from the lesson. You can use my class videos. You can use Desmos. You can use Desmos on the test. So if I want to know the graph that matches this systems of equations, I'm probably going to go graph this systems of equation and see what it looks like. And I'll go, well, it doesn't look like that. It doesn't look like, I'm going to pick out the graph that looks like what it looks like in Desmos. Here's an equation. How can this be set up as a system of equation? Because you just have this expression equals that expression. Well, that didn't even graph well. How can I make that a system of equations instead? Which equation does this solve? So in other words, of these four down here, which one is that the graph of? Here's another one like that. Which graph solves this? There's lots of them graphing, so make sure you're going to Desmos and looking at the graph of these equations. Will these intersect? You have a graph and a table. Well, if I have a table, I'm going to take the points on that table, put them on a graph, and see what it looks like, so I know what that looks like. Here's another circle and a table. All right, 10 problems. There's only 10 problems for part 1. Multiple choice. 10 multiple choice problems. Now let's look at part 2. Part 2 has 1, 2, 3, 4 problems about systems of equations. 4. Solve this and show all. Here's the thing about this. There's this big blank here because you have to show all your work. You can't just put an answer. I mean, you can get some points if you get an answer. You're not going to get 10. Not going to get 5. You'll get less than 5 points by just giving me the answer. Because the important thing is, did you know how to solve it? So, okay, so you got a problem there, a word problem here. And this one just says, describe the key features that are needed to determine if they intersect. You don't have to solve this one either. You say, how would I be able to tell if they intersect? What would I need to know? What are the key features? Remember, key features we talked about were like slope, increasing, decreasing, y-intercept. Which of those would you need to know for that? Okay, this one you have a table. And this is actually 2 tables combined, right? So it has, here's the X. The month is the X. January is 1, 2, 3. So that's the month number. And here's f of x. So that's the first function. So in January, it equals 3. In February, it equals 4. In March, it equals 5. In April, it equals 6. Here's the second function. So we got f of x and g of x. So this function, when January, it equals 1. In February, it equals 4. In March, it equals 6. In April, it equals 7. So you don't have the equations. You don't need the equations. Some people have tried to write the equations. You can't write an equation that goes 1, 4, 6, 7. That's not linear. It's not a parabola. This one's linear, 3, 4, 5, 6, but you can't even write the equation for this because it's nothing that you've studied. So read this and explain to your boss the solution to this system of equations, because that's what you have. You have two different equations in a table. And then the last one should be the easiest. Determine the solution to this systems of equation. You have the equations, but you also have the graph. So if you paid attention on how to solve systems of equations by graphing, you can tell me the answer and tell me why in one sentence. You can tell me the answer and why that's the answer in one sentence. Look at the graph. But that's it. 4 questions. Now let me show you something on here though. When you write an equation on Buzz, it's important, guys, because this will look funny. If I'm trying to write like one of these, well, this doesn't have it, but sometimes we have something with a fraction like y equals 1/2 x squared. I'm going to put a squared even. Minus 6x plus 5. Well, that's what it looks like, and it can get a little confusing. But if, I'm going to copy this, there is a button here. There's a button in Buzz that you need to use. And see right over here, it's towards the end. It looks like a plus and a minus and a check mark. It says insert equation. Click on that button. And now here's where you type y equals 1/2 x squared minus 6x plus 5. And it's going to look like this at the bottom. See, that looks a lot easier to read than the one above it. And insert equation. If you don't know how to type it, something, click on this down at the bottom, and here's a whole bunch of buttons you can use to automatically do things for you. Well, I don't know how to do the square root of 7. Well, here's a square root button. So if I click that and then type 7, oh, look what it did for me. It made it the square root of 7. That looks right. So use the insert equation button. And if you need these symbols at the bottom, there's a bunch of them there. Some of them you won't even use. Some of them we don't use at all, but there's a lot of the stuff to use. Something squared, plus or minus. There's the times divided, plus, minus, all that, square roots, third roots, fourth roots, fifth roots, all of that right there. So use that. All right. So I'm going to stop presenting this so I can emphasize this. This is very important. The test is 100 points. Okay, that's a lot more than the assignments we've been doing. 100 points. I think the part 1 is worth 50 points. That's the multiple choice. Part 2 is worth 28 points. So you're like, wait a minute, that's not 100 points, Mr. Brock. No, it's not. That's 78 points. The third part of the test is the discussion-based assessment. You're like, discussion-based assessment. Yes, that means where you and I are going to get on a meet, just the two of us, not with students around, not with nobody, just the two of us. And I'm going to ask you some questions about solving systems of equations. 5 minutes. 5 minutes, because I have so many students here, I can't spend more than 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and I'm going to ask you, and your answers will be the third part of the test. It's worth 22 points. If you know your stuff and you can answer the questions and tell me how to solve systems equation based on what I ask you, no problem. I'm happy to give you the 22 points. That'll be added to the 78 points you get for part 1 and part 2, and that'll be the total test grade. I'll put them as 3 separate grades in eSchool. So it'll show up as 3 separate grades, the discussion-based part 1 and part 2. So you can see if you didn't do well, you can see which part you might want to go back and look at and redo. And yes, I would let you redo the discussion-based assessment if you learn more and can answer the questions later, but you can't just turn around and do it 10 minutes later. So how are we going to do this, Mr. Brock? Let me show you. Let me go back to Buzz. Okay, if you scroll down to where the There it is. Systems of equations, discussion-based assessment. This is just the directions. There's the actual assignment. Let's look at what the directions say. I don't know that it has a whole lot for us. It usually has like a review. Oh, it says there. Contact your instructor for this discussion-based assessment. So you're going to do that with your instructor and then just submit the date that you did. So all you're turning in is what date did you do this and what did you discuss. So let's look at the page where the assignment is. It says sign up for a time at the link below. And here's a link. Now, these sign-ups is for this week only. You have to sign up sometime this week. And there's times available tomorrow all the way through Friday. So you can find some time that'll work in your schedule. If you miss doing that this week, then you're going to have to email me and schedule a specific time just for you. Because I made a lot of time. I'm available this week. I don't have as much time usually, but I'm making that time this week. So here's what happens when you click this. It opens up another window and it goes to this Sign Up Genius website. And look, so it starts right here. Tuesday, tomorrow. I've got a 5-minute slot at 11:15 in the morning, 11:20, 11:25, 11:30, all the way until 10 after 12. So for about an hour tomorrow, I've got some slots. Then it goes to Wednesday. Wednesday, I've got a lot more time. First off, I have starting at 10:30. I don't have classes. So every 5 minutes starting at 10:30, all the way through this class time, because I'll be doing that during this class. Now, if you have to come to class because your grade's below 70%, you come to class. And I'm going to do breakout rooms for anyone that needs to do their 5 minutes. So you can sign up during class on Wednesday, all the way up until 2:15 is my last, 2:10 to 2:15 is my last one for Tuesday. Thursday, I've got some time in the morning. Again, up until just past noon. And then Friday, I've got a bunch of time. Again, all the way through this, up until this class. Up until 12:15. I'm going to block out Friday for anyone else that needs to. This is a B day. That's why. Friday, we don't have class. We only have class on Wednesday. So look, there is I think there's 125 slots here. So that's more than enough. There's only 31 students in this class. So there's 125 different places. If you want to make sure you get your time, sign up earlier. But just review the 4 assignments that we've done before this. You're like, how do I prepare for that? If you know how to do these things, if you got good grades on all these, you probably won't have any trouble at all. But I may ask you a question about any one of these assignments. How do I solve this algebraically? I may have you solve it. I may not. I may just ask you a question about it. Knowing how to do it graphically helps a lot, and nonlinear. So if you know everything from these 4 assignments, you'll have absolutely no problem. If you haven't done these yet, do those quickly before your appointed time. Sign up for a time late in the week then and get your assignments done, because you need to know something about it. If you need to come to class Wednesday and ask questions of me so you can do your discussion-based assessment Thursday or Friday, come to class Wednesday and ask. So we'll find some time in there. So that's what we have this week. Discussion-based assessment. So 22 points out of the 100 is you getting with me and answering questions this week. 22 out of 100. So that's pretty substantial. I mean, if you ace everything else, you're only going to get a 78 until you do the discussion-based assessment. So part 1, part 2, and the conversation with Mr. Brock. That is what you have this week. We don't have any new lessons. I'm not going over anything, so I'm not going to keep you the rest of the class. But if you want to start on your test, or if you want to be reviewing during this period, I want to give you time to do what you feel like you need to do to be ready for the test this week. But this is due Sunday night. But the discussion-based assessment, I'm only doing through Friday at noon. So you need to sign up for a time, sometime in there. And I'll be checking that starting tomorrow will be the signups. When you do your discussion-based assessment, you come back to this Google class. Even if it's not at a class time, this is where our discussion-based assessment will be in class here. So just use the Google Meet. I'll have this class open during those sign-up times so we can have our 5 minutes. So it is right here in Buzz. Let me pull it up again because I want to make sure everybody sees it. Where it has the discussion-based assessment right there, and it's got the little icon showing that's the assignment. That's where the sign-up is. If you go there, it's right there. click the link below to view the content. It says sign up for a time at the link below. Click right there on that link, and that will take you to the sign up page. So that link right there in Buzz on the $1.06 systems equation assessment takes you to the link right here. So there's one slot available in each time period. Yeah, you need to know where that's at. It's right there in Buzz for the assignment. And I'll probably put that link in Google Classroom as well. I don't know that I did under class. I'll look at do this week in Buzz and see, make sure I add that link as well. Let me see. Yeah, I do not have it in there. So I will add that link in Google Classroom as well. So that way you know how to sign up. All right. Any other questions on that? All right. We'll be moving on to the next unit next week. So it's a good time to get caught up on anything from Unit 1. If you got questions, hang around or come Wednesday and we can work on that. But it is a B-Day Friday, so we won't have class then. All right, guys, you're dismissed for the day then. You can get started on other things. And if anyone needs any help with anything, hang around. I'll be here in class.